Carbohydrates, or sugars, are a major organic molecule found in the human body. The basic structure of a sugar is a carbon chain with hydrogen and oxygen attached, so that for each carbon there are two hydrogens and one oxygen. That's the basic structure of a carbohydrate, which is how it gets its name, because for every carbon there's a molecule of water, hydrated carbon, carbohydrate. So this is a five carbon chain. You have to have at least 3 carbons to be a sugar. This is a 5 carbon chain, and we can see what that looks like. And here are some other examples. These are called isomers. These are 6 carbon sugars. They all have the same molecular structure. It's just that some of the atoms are placed in different areas. So in the body, what typically happens is once this sugar that we were looking at, this chain of carbons, exists in solution, one end will link to the other, basically forming a ring. And so when you see these ring structures of sugar, it's the same thing. It's just that in solution, the carbohydrate will exist as a ring. So here's a picture from the book showing us some single ring structures. These are called monosaccharides. A monosaccharide is the basic building block of a carbohydrate. That's the monomer, or the basic subunit. And the reason that that is the subunit is because monosaccharides can link together. So here you see one monosaccharide linking to a second monosaccharide, and we call this a disaccharide. All it is a dimer. It's, two monosaccharides linked together. And so as an example, you can see some common disaccharides. Sucrose is a common disaccharide. Sucrose is regular table sugar, so you can see that's just 2 monosaccharides linked together. Lactose, which is the sugar that's found in milk, is also a disaccharide, just 2 monosaccharides linked together. And so in the body, what we do to store sugar is, instead of stopping at 2 monomers, our body can actually form long branching chains of monosaccharides, and that's what's known as a polysaccharide. So a polysaccharide is just a long chain of monosaccharides, and in the human body, here's a depiction of that. In the human body, the type of polysaccharide that we produce is called glycogen, and that's produced in the liver. It's just a storage form of sugar, but you can see it's a polysaccharide. It's just a big branching chain of monosaccharides. Other organisms can store sugar in different ways. Plants can store sugars as a polysaccharide called starch. So if you think of starchy vegetables like potato or corn, what they're doing is they're storing sugar in a different type of polysaccharide called a starch. Humans can't produce starch. We can ingest starch and use it for energy. Plants can also store sugar as cellulose, which is like a fibrous type of sugar storage. Another type of polysaccharide is called chitin, and chitin forms the exoskeleton of insects and crustaceans like lobster and shrimp. The reason that we're talking about carbohydrates right now is because carbohydrates are part of every plasma membrane. So taking a look at this picture, do you see this area in blue? This is the extracellular fluid, the watery environment outside the cell. In yellow is the cytoplasm, so this is the inside of the cell. We can see the phospholipid bilayer. You can see the cholesterol integrated into the phospholipid bilayer in yellow. We can see the proteins in blue. And then the sugars, the polysaccharides, are these branching purple structures. So this is representing a polysaccharide, just a bunch of monosaccharides in a branching chain. So I'm noticing that that polysaccharide is linked to a phospholipid, the head group of a phospholipid. Here's another example of a polysaccharide, and I can see that that's linked to a protein. Here's another example of carbohydrate linked to a protein. And so you might notice that the branching purple structures, these carbohydrates, they're only found on the extracellular surface. So you can think of cells as being sugar-coated. We don't see any of the polysaccharides branching into the cytoplasm, into the intracellular surface. When a polysaccharide links to a lipid, like in these cases, then people call this a glycolipid. Or when sugar, carbohydrate, polysaccharide links to a protein, we call that a glycoprotein. That combination of sugars that are extending into the extracellular space, that pattern, that 3D pattern that's created, that's what's known as the glycocalyx